Hello, and welcome back to the Law of Attraction for Writers podcast. I'm Suzanne Lieurance, and I've got a question for you. Have you ever wondered if all the writing you're doing is actually leading anywhere? I mean, if you keep showing up and you keep writing, you keep learning, but sometimes it feels as though nothing is changing, that happens. If you don't have a publishing contract, or you haven't written a bestseller, or you haven't had a sudden breakthrough, then it's easy to start wondering if your efforts are making any difference at all. And I think every writer reaches this point at one time or another. The truth is, most of us are looking for evidence that the process is working before the process has had time to work. So today I'd like to share a different way of thinking about your writing journey. Instead of simply trusting the process, I'd like you to begin trusting the process of becoming the writer you're meant to be, because that's where the law of attraction really comes alive. So one of the biggest misconceptions about the law of attraction is that it's all about attracting what you want, your goal. And goals matter, of course. Maybe you want to publish a book or build a successful writing career or just reach more readers. But while you're focused on those goals, something even more important is happening. You're becoming. Every writing session strengthens your discipline. Every revision improves your craft, and every challenge teaches resilience. So the law of attraction isn't only responding to what you're hoping to receive, that big goal, it's responding to who you're becoming along the way. If you become the writer who shows up consistently, keeps learning, and refuses to give up, then the opportunities you're asking for become much easier to recognize and receive. So imagine this. Imagine if someone could promise you today that 5 years from now, you'll be living your dream writing life. Would you still sit down to write tomorrow? Of course you would. You wouldn't obsess over whether today's writing session produced immediate results. You'd simply keep going because you know the outcome was unfolding. That's what trust looks like. Trust isn't passive. It isn't sitting back and hoping. Trust is continuing to take inspired action even when the evidence hasn't caught up with your faith. So years ago, I worked with a writer who felt discouraged because she'd been writing consistently for months without seeing any visible success. And so I just asked her a question. I said, "Are you a better writer today than you were 6 months ago?" And she kind of smiled and said, "Yeah." Well, that changed everything. She realized then that she'd been measuring only external results while overlooking the incredible growth taking place inside her. She wasn't just writing a book, she was becoming a writer. So think of that. If you're working on a book, you're not just writing a book, you are becoming a writer every time you sit down to work on that book. So here's a practical writing exercise. This week, make a list of 3 ways you've grown as a writer during the past year. Then write one sentence that begins with this: "I am becoming the kind of writer who," and then finish that sentence honestly. "I am becoming the kind of writer who." Maybe you're becoming the kind of writer who finishes what you start, or who writes consistently, or who shares your work with confidence. Then once you've got that sentence written down and you have it somewhere where you can see it every day, read that sentence before every writing session this week. And let it remind you that today's work is shaping tomorrow's opportunities. And I've got another intention for you to put down on paper, and here it is. I'll also put it in the description of this episode so you can just copy it. But your intention is, I trust that every page I write is helping me become the writer I'm meant to be. And I know that every step forward matters. So that should be your intention. Remember, we're not just basing our writing on goals, but we're also setting intentions for how we want to write, how we want to become this writer. So just remember that learning to trust your writing journey doesn't mean pretending every day is easy, because it won't be. It just means that believing that every page, every revision, every lesson, and every setback is helping shape you into the writer who can receive the success you're asking for. So the writing life isn't built in one breakthrough moment. It's built one writing session at a time. And if you'd like encouragement from a community of writers who are all learning to trust that journey together, I'd invite you to join us inside Monday Morning Manifestors. Every Monday morning, we meet live on Zoom to set intentions, encourage one another, and keep moving forward. And membership also includes my monthly digital magazine, Manifesting Monthly. And you can learn about Monday Morning Manifestors at mondaymorningmanifestors.com. Now, next week, we're going to talk about another challenge every writer faces, and that is when fear is running the show, because it does run the show a lot more than we sometimes realize. So until next week, keep writing, keep believing, and keep becoming the writer you're meant to be. Talk to you next week.